Hi everyone, welcome or welcome back to my channel. I'm Isabel and this is my library. In today's video, I bring you my wrap up for the month of May. So the month of May was pretty busy for me, as I had told you in my TBR video for this month. This was my last month of school, super busy with AP testing, end of year celebrations and get-togethers, yearbook distributions. I mean, it's been a lot. It's been a long month. I still managed to read a total of 9 books this month, and I'm pretty proud of myself for at least being able to do that. I'm definitely looking forward to summer vacation and not having to go into work and being able to have my lazy mornings with my coffee and with my good books, and hopefully make some dents on my shelves and read some more amazing stuff. But for now, for the month of May, I am pretty excited to share with you a little bit about the 9 books that I read this month. So I'll go ahead and start off with my stats as I do each month. I read a total of 9 books. I read a total of 2,280 pages, which is pretty good considering how busy I was. I read a total of 3 thrillers, 2 mangas that were parts of a series that I am currently working on. I read a nonfiction reference kind of book. I had a hard time with some of these categories, with these outlier ones, but yeah. Then I read Choose Your Own Adventure erotica novella. I'll tell you more about that now. I read 1 fantasy and 1 horror. So the stats are a little bit more like what I normally read, with the thrillers, the horror, and the manga. Obviously, the outliers are the nonfiction reference, the Choose Your Own Adventure erotica novella, and the fantasy. So those are a little bit out of my comfort zone, things I normally don't read or that are a little different. But yeah, I'm looking forward to telling you about all these things that I read. So as I do each month, I'll go ahead and start off with my least favorite book, working my way all the way to my favorite book of this month. So I'll start off with my least favorite book of the month. And this came in at 2 stars. And that is Everyone Who Can Forgive Me Is Dead. So this is an aardvark book. I've had it on my shelves for a little bit and I had been meaning to read it. I finally ended up putting it on my TBR because of the TBR tarot card challenge. That's how it kind of moved up a little bit on my TBR, and I did read it this month. So I'll start off by giving you a brief synopsis of this. And by the way, this is by Jenny Hollander. Never read from this author before. This was my first experience with this author. So in this book, we are following a main character named Charlie. And from the moment that we meet Charlie, we know that she is in therapy because she has some unresolved issues or some trauma left over from an incident that occurred when she was in university. And there was one night, they call it, I believe, the Scarlet Christmas. That's the way that the event is referenced in the media now. Something happened where some friends died, and it was all over the news, and there were open investigations, and basically Charlie survived without any harm done to her. She was one of the only ones who didn't have any physical effects from this attack, if you will. So with the narrative, we're going back and forth between the present and the past, which is not a favorite kind of narrative device for me. I don't love a lot of the now and 3 years ago, back and forth. It's not my favorite for these thrillers. I think it's because it's kind of played out already, or I feel I've seen that done before. And honestly, That is my biggest critique of this book. I feel like all of this has been done before. I feel like I've read versions of this book before and they've all been better. So, to get you back to the synopsis, basically, Charlie, although she's moved on with her life or whatnot, she's a successful journalist. She has a new significant other. She's trying to just move away from this past that haunts her. She's still very much suffering the effects of the trauma. There are still things that are very triggering to her. The mention of the events that happened that night, or something as simple as like going in an elevator, being in a confined space, or things like that, right? The reason why all of this is kind of fresh in her head now is because there's a person a family member of one of the victims wants to do a movie. They want to do a movie for the anniversary of the murders, and this is all kind of giving her a lot of anxiety because she is an unreliable narrator, and there are things that she doesn't want coming out into the open. So that's basically the premise of the book. And I feel like this is something that is just played out in thrillers, in my opinion. An unreliable narrator who survived this tragic event where she uh, is hiding part of what really went on that night, and she's the only one who knows what really happened, and she thinks she remembers it one way but she doesn't, and it's that kind of a thing. So the character work wasn't good enough for me to make this memorable. I think it's incredibly forgettable. It's just like any other kind of thriller. There's no high stakes, I feel, and the payoff at the end wasn't worth it. The reveal was really not worth it, and yeah, it was pretty much a disappointment from me. I enjoyed the title. I thought that would, you know, have more of an impact. Yeah, I was just pretty much disappointed with this one. I didn't give it a 1 star because I thought the writing, was good. It's not that it's doing anything offensive. I find that if this might be, if you're new to thrillers and you've never read one before, I'm sure you would find this perfectly fine. A 3 star, or maybe even a 4 star. But for me, I feel like I've seen and read books like this before, so I was incredibly unimpressed, and that's why it's my least favorite book of this month. So moving on to 3 star territory. So the next book, or my second on the list, is The World of the Unknown, Ghosts. And when I hauled this, I talked about how this was a book that I had read or seen as a child, and I purely bought this again. I just bought this for nostalgic reasons, and I was intrigued to read something that I remember from my childhood, seeing it in the library, or the school library, or the public library. And it was cool. It kind of reads like an encyclopedia. I really enjoyed the pictures and the illustrations. I thought that was a lot of fun. I gave it a 3 star simply because I felt it was so short, that there could have been like a lot more to be done with this. I also feel like some of the parts were a little bit disjointed. I did enjoy the illustrations, although, outdated, and it feels like it's of its time. I know the original printing of this is from like the 70s. And yeah, I mean, it was fine. I wish it would have been a little longer. I wish it would have gone maybe more in depth. It felt more like a nostalgic little magazine read. It did give me all the encyclopedia vibes I was going for, so it didn't really do anything wrong. I just feel like it wasn't in depth enough uh, for my liking. But other than that, it's a 3 star. It's pretty solid. If you remember this from your childhood, then you kind of know what I'm talking about. I remembered the cover a lot, and like the art style, but I didn't really remember my reading experience with it or whatnot. But I'm still happy I have it, happy it's a part of my collection. And yeah, that is The World of the Unknown, Ghosts. The next book I read that comes in at 3 stars is Tiny Threads by Lilium Rivera. So I read this right at the beginning of the month, and I think part of The reason why it's kind of low on my favorites of the month is because I found it to be forgettable. So there were many things that this book was doing that I enjoyed. And when I was reading it, I was very into it. I was very excited to continue reading, to figure out where the book was going. This is under the horror category. So it's not a thriller. It's pretty, if I had to pick one genre for it, it would definitely be horror. Um, it's an author I have never read from before. I'll share with you the premise. So we are following a main character named Samara. She is a Hispanic woman and she has just gotten a job with a famous fashion designer, Antonio Mota. And she is now living in California. She's like a native of Jersey, where she lived with her Cuban family. I believe she's of Cuban heritage. And Samara's going through some personal things. She's having some difficulties adjusting. She has some issues that have haunted her in the past that are now resurfacing. I enjoyed that we got a little bit of background on her being a Hispanic character and the family dynamics with that. I also enjoyed some of the commentary that was used there about Hispanic women in the fashion industry and the different roles that they played. As a journalist, she was there covering her story and trying to find new angles for what this designer had been able to do. But she also meets a group of women who are the seamstresses who work there. And yeah, there were some kind of shocking scenes here, so I would, if you're interested in reading this, I would tell you to tread lightly and read the trigger warnings. But there are some SA scenes here that could be triggering, so I'd like to warn you about that. There are elements of the supernatural which I enjoyed, and that's kind of what I feel the book should have done more of. And that was kind of the direction that I thought the book was going in. I ultimately found it a little bit lackluster. I was not impressed with where the book went. I think it was an interesting premise and it had some very cool commentary. I just feel like there were a lot of missed opportunities as to where the book could have gone. Because even in its like kind of story of a haunting and supernatural things that were happening, it wasn't strong enough, present enough, big enough, or important enough, I think. And yeah, I think it was just a little bit lost or misguided what the point of what the author was trying to do. I felt like it lacked a little bit of direction, and I wished it would have done that better. I did really enjoy the language. Right at the beginning, I felt like it read a little bit like Mona Awad's writing. So if you've ever read Mona Awad, I think there were some influences of that here. Like it felt a lot like that voice. How a lot of her books are very beautiful and figurative, and the language is very fever-like, and uh, that kind that kind of figurative language, which is very pretty. I just don't think like it was executed in the best way. So that was Tiny Threads by Lilium Rivera. So next on my list is Black Card Choice. So this was actually an arc that I received from the author. It is an author that I follow on Instagram, and I was given an opportunity to read this arc and kind of test it out digitally. I'll tell you more about that now in a minute. But basically, this, first of all, is not normally a genre that I read. I don't really read erotica like that, or spicy books like that. I don't, normally I do read some romance that has spice in it, but I feel like this was like marketed as like erotica. So it's not normally something that I pick up on my own. So I don't think I am the targeted audience for this. The reason I did accept to reading and reviewing the arc is because it is a choose your own adventure book, and you guys know that I really enjoy that. So it is a book that presents choices to the reader, and then your choices obviously take you to the different pages and the different endings. So I did like that, and it was very interesting to read like an adult version of that. Um, and what I mean by test it out is, since it was a digital copy, part of my reviewing was making sure that like the links went where, they were meant to take you, and that it was working. Because obviously, choose your own adventure books could be a little bit more difficult to navigate when it's a digital copy, because you have to make sure that you're getting sent to where you need to go or whatnot. Um, and the premise of this is basically there is a young woman who's like at a party, and she's a little bit bored with her life, stagnant kind of life, and she meets a woman there who offers her this black card with a phone number. And basically, if she's willing to have all of her erotic dreams come true, she should contact the number. And that basically is what the premise of the book is about. It is a short novella, so it's a very quick read. Although there are multiple options that take you in different places, it's still very cool to have that feature or that element in it. I know it is part of a series, or it exists in the same universe as another book. I have not read that other book, so I'm not really sure. But I know that it does share a universe with that. And yeah, I did give this 4 stars simply because of the unique aspect of what it's doing. I thought that was very cool that it was able to elevate this pick your path or choose your own adventure into like an adult themed kind of book. I feel like it would have been a 4 or 5 star to anyone who enjoys or normally reads these kinds of books. So yeah, it was a very cool experience. I'm not sure on its release date, but I will go ahead and look that up and put it down on the screen in case you are interested in picking that up. And again, that's Black Card Choice by JD Midnight. So my next book is also a 4 star, and that is Real Account number 6. And so, as you guys know, I've been talking to you about this series for a while. I have been enjoying the premise of it. I'm not really sure how far I'm going to continue in the series. I'm liking it. I This one actually got a 4 star. This volume got a 4 star from me, so I did enjoy it a little bit more than some of the ones in the past. I think we were at a lull, and now we're picking up again. I'm still enjoying it. The characters are still playing their game. I obviously, with these series, I don't want to say too much to not ruin anything, but we were basically in this one seeing the characters play out this game, this fiery game where they had to reveal gossip or bad things about the other players to add fuel to the fire. And so basically, for each thing that they revealed about another person, the fire grew and grew, and they could achieve what they had to achieve to survive this particular game. Again, for those of you who have or new to my channel or you haven't really heard me pitch this before, Real Account is basically a manga that talks about the dangers of social media, and like the characters basically are all users of this app Real Account, and they get like sucked into like this digital world where they have to survive. And the main way they lose is if they get to 0 followers. If people in the real world or people playing the game with them stop following them, they die. Like that's how you lose the game. So the point is to survive. And in each one of the books, there's different games that they have to play, and all the games pretty much are surrounded around the same concept that why do we place so much importance in our digital presence? Why does it matter how many followers we have? How inauthentic our digital lives are in comparison to our real lives? And that's what I kind of like about it, that it feels very Black Mirror-ish, where that it feels a little bit kind of futuristic, sci-fi-ish, yet it provides a lot of smart commentary. So that's my favorite part of the series. And yeah, that this one got another 4 star from me. So the next book is Spy Family Volume 3. So I did enjoy this volume of Spy Family. I enjoy the family dynamics. I enjoy everything that's happening in the story thus far. So in this volume, we get to see how they are exploring and developing their relationship as a couple. Twilight does meet his now brother-in-law, who is not in approval of their relationship or their marriage, and he's questioning the authenticity of it. However, Twilight has his own qualms with his brother-in-law, and he's thinking that he might be a spy, he might be working for someone else, so he's very suspicious of him. We also see more of their family dynamics, and it's a lot of fun. Finally, I am seeing that there might be the addition of the dog or the pet in the family. I know from the anime that that's like a big deal. Finally, in this volume, they mention it or there's an allusion to it, but the dog has not joined the family just yet, but I am looking forward to that. It's a very cute series. I think it's very wholesome and it makes you smile, and it's a feel good kind of manga, which is not normally the kind of manga that I like to read. I like to read slightly darker, more horror leaning manga, but I mean, Spy Family is just something that I think everyone kind of enjoys. And yeah, it was fun. It was a good addition to the series, and I look forward to reading more volumes of it in the future. So, next on my list is, with 4 stars, The Cabin at the End of the World. And I have, by Paul Tremblay. And I have thoughts, guys. I have a lot of thoughts. So I just recently met with my best friend. As you guys know, this was a buddy read that I did with her for our book club. And she helped me pick this out because this had been forever on my TBR. As you guys know, I've talked about this before. I had been waiting for the right moment to read this book. I wish I would have read this sooner for various reasons, which I'll talk about now. I had even held off on watching the movie because I did not want anything to spoil this book for me. So let me first tell you about the premise of The Cabin at the End of the World in case you haven't read it either or you haven't heard of it. So in this, we are following Eric and Andrew, who are a couple, and their daughter Wen, who's like a young girl. I believe she's 8. And we basically are following them in their cabin in the woods. One day at the opening scene, Wen is playing outside catching grasshoppers, and she has an encounter with this mysterious man who comes out of the woods and says that he is her friend, that he means her no harm. He helps her catch a couple grasshoppers, and then he says that he needs to speak to her dads because they have an important decision that they have to make. And I guess I'll tell you a tiny bit more. Let me just double check that this is in the back of the book. Yeah, so I'll just tell you what's on there to not spoil anything, because I like going in blindly, and I assume a lot of people do too. So basically, what he's there for, he's not alone. There are others with him, and all of them are there to present to Andrew and Eric the truth. And the truth is that they need to sacrifice someone in their family in order to prevent the apocalypse. That's the premise of the book. So this is going to be difficult for me to tell you the things I didn't enjoy or what I wanted more of, because I don't want to get spoilery with this book. I feel like I wasn't loving the writing of this book. There were a couple things that I didn't enjoy about the point of view. So at times we would start with third person narrative, talking about Andrew or talking about Eric, but then it would switch to first person. And I found that very off putting. I really did not enjoy the switching around of POVs. I'm not sure if that was purposefully done. I have read Paul Tremblay before, and I've never really experienced this with the writing itself that I wasn't vibing with. So I'm not really sure if this is just this book kind of a thing. I also found that because the premise of the book was so interesting, so engaging, so high intensity, right? Like, what do you mean? Like, these people have to sacrifice someone, like, because the apocalypse is coming. Like, I have so many questions. I want answers. I felt that the writing was very slow. I felt it was overwritten at parts, incredibly descriptive for no reason. There were moments where I just wanted the action to continue. Like, I did not want, this is not the kind of book that I want a lot of character development on. I don't want to go back in time and get backstories of these characters. Like, I want it to be jam packed and moving, 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 because I'm already, as a reader, having like a lot of tension. Like, I don't want to sit here and for him to describe the woman in the white shirt softly or gently moves forward. Like, I don't want that. I want you to just tell me quickly what happens and move to dialogue, you know? So I felt that because the premise of this was so interesting, it did not need him to drag on the writing for so long. Because the premise itself was so exciting and so interesting. Um, so I didn't really enjoy that. And then I found some parts confusing, like because of the way that it was written, it kept taking me out of the story. So I had to keep going back, and I had to say, wait, who was that again? And I had to flip when I was reading physically, because I did read parts of the book physically, but I also, this was one of my combo reads, so I did have the audiobook going at other times. And I think that's a recommendation. I actually talked to my best friend about that. And I think if you haven't read this and you're interested in it, I think it's a, you know, it's a good book. I gave it 4 stars. I'm just, I'm trying to explain to you why I didn't love it as much as I wanted to love it. And I think if you are planning on reading this, I think this benefits from a physical read. I think it is one of those books that is better when you're physically reading. The chapters are incredibly lengthy or long. And sometimes because of the POV that varies, you're not really sure who's talking, or you want to like go back, you know, because the chapters are also like not really chapters in true fashion. It's more like segments where we have like a new character, so they're not authentically like brand new chapters. We have sections, right, like sections, but within the sections it's just block of text, right, going from like the various characters. So my recommendation would be to read this physically. And if you are doing the audio, do the combination of audio with physical at the same time, but it's a little bit difficult if you're reading just audio. And I know my best friend read this digitally. She told me she struggled with that as well, because since she was reading on her Kindle, she kept wanting to go back to see who was talking again. And it was difficult because she had to, you know, it's not like flipping to find who was talking. So even digitally, she said that she did struggle. So we both kind of shared that sentiment that this would be perfect to just read physically, to be able to kind of remind yourself of where it's going and all of that. Obviously there are, that's my main thing with it, right? The language, the narrative style, the POVs, like I struggled with that. I thought that that's one of the things that kept me from loving this. I enjoyed how everything happened, where the book went. I did enjoy that. I can't really tell you more about that simply because I think that would be spoilery. I also do want to tell you, I did watch the movie. Finally, I said to my husband, guess what? I finished this book and we can finally watch this movie, because I had been wanting to watch it for so long. But I will say the movie is completely different from the book. I mean, it changes like the major things or the major parts of the book. So, yeah, if you're interested in either watching the movie or reading the book, I'll tell you they are two very different experiences. And overall, I did like the book better. I like what happens in the book way better than what happens in the film. I really don't know why they went there and did those changes, but I did overall enjoy the book way more than the movie experience. And it's funny because my best friend did see the movie prior to reading the book. She didn't really remember a lot of those details, but she didn't like the book as much as I did. And I feel that it's because of what we interpreted the book to be trying to do or what was happening in the book. She had a very different opinion from my opinion of what was happening in the book. And again, it's a lot of spoilery conversations. Maybe if you guys want, I can do like a quick, you know, spoiler filled kind of review, like a 5 or 10 minute review on the book that includes spoilers. Let me know if that's something you're interested in, because then I can dive further into this conversation that she and I had about it. But overall, I do recommend it. It's a solid 4-star read for me. I wanted this to be a 5 star. I always thought this was going to be a 5 star book for me, and it ended up not being a 5 star. But still, I do recommend it. I do recommend it if you like the concept of the apocalypse, home invasion things, uh, that kind of thing. Then I think you will enjoy it. So now we have another 4-star read, and that is The Eyes of the Dragon by Stephen King. And this was a reread for me, but it didn't feel like a reread. I read this when I was in the 8th grade, I believe. My mom had just read it and she recommended it to me. My mom's a big Stephen King fan, and so I picked it up and I remember really enjoying it. And as an adult, I had never read it again, but I knew I had liked it. My husband and I had planned to do some buddy reading this year. He's a fantasy reader. I am not. And I would always tell him, "What do you mean you haven't read The Eyes of the Dragon? That's such a staple Stephen King book." And he has read quite a few of them. And he is in the middle of, or toward the ending, I believe, of reading the Dark Tower series. So I wanted him to read it. So this was my pick for our buddy read, and he and I were able to read this together. There's actually a video on my channel where he and I discuss our thoughts on this, and we do it together and kind of walk you through what we loved or didn't love about The Eyes of the Dragon by Stephen King. This is basically a fairy tale kind of story. It feels like a fairy tale. It is a fantasy book. So in this, we are following King Roland, and King Roland has two sons. He has Thomas and Peter. Peter is set to inherit the throne when his father passes, and the king has a wizard who assists, and that's Flag. And I know Flag is an important character in the Stephen King universe. When Thomas is born, the mother dies, the queen dies, and so Peter is very sad to lose his mother because he was very, very close to her. Thomas, unfortunately, never really gets to meet his mother because she dies giving birth to him or doing his birth. Basically, at one point or another, Flag wants to rid himself of Peter as the future heir to the throne, so he does some stuff to get Peter locked up in this castle, in this tower. And that's basically what this is all about. So it's Peter's escape story, his revenge story. It talks a little bit about the king that Thomas becomes in the absence of his brother when asked to step it up and lead Delane. And yeah, that's pretty much the premise of this. It reads like a fairy tale. It's a very easy read. It has some beautiful illustrations, and I really enjoyed some elements of the impact that uh, Peter's mother, Sasha, I believe her name is, has on him and his life. And it was very, very, it was a pleasant reading experience. It was just as good as I remembered it. I did give it 4 stars. So basically, I think it wasn't a 5 star because I was expecting a little bit more. At the ending, I wanted more of that final confrontation between Flag and Peter. I wanted something extra. This kind of just felt like it wasn't as exciting maybe as it could have been. And that's the only thing that kept me from giving this a 5 star. But other than that, it's fun. There's great character development as per usual with Stephen King. And if you haven't read this one, it's an oldie, but it's a goodie. And now we come to my favorite book of the month of May. So unfortunately, it's not a 5 star, it's only a 4 star. And that means I don't have any 5 stars for the month of May, but I also don't have any 1 stars. So I'll take that. I think this is the first month that I don't have any 5 stars. So I know it is what it is, you know. But my favorite book of the month was The Tenant by Frida McFadden, which was a little bit surprising to me. I have read a lot of Frida McFadden, and I think a lot of her books are really, really good. I have given a couple of them 5 stars, but I was not expecting this to be my favorite book. Um, but it ended up being my favorite book of the month. So I did read this as a buddy read with my booktube friends. I read this with Michelle from Literary Me and Dee from the Reading Room. Of course, I'll make sure that I tag their channels down below, check them out. We also did a live show where we gave you guys all of our spoilery thoughts on this. If you missed it and you want to see that, I'll go ahead and put that also down below in the description box so you can see us having some fun talking about this book. So I'll tell you the premise of The Tenant. So in this, we are following Blake, and it's unusual for Frida McFadden to have a male main character that we are following, so that was interesting. And in the author notes toward the back, she does talk about that, and she kind of says that it was difficult to be in the headspace of a man, and that she kept going to her husband for some feedback and saying, would a guy say this? Is this how a man would, react? Yes or no? Or what do I change it to? Because she said that that was kind of a challenge. So in this, we are following Blake. And Blake is married, and he has this beautiful brownstone home that he's very proud of. He's kind of made something of himself. His parents had a very um, economically challenging beginning. Like when he was a child, like his parents were very hard workers. And he kind of makes it a point to be rich one day and be able to afford all the luxuries of life and the world that he, the like kind of life that he wants to live. So when we first open up, we meet Blake, and he has a very important position. It's a new position he has just earned at his job. He's been promoted and he's excited and everything is great. But all of a sudden, he gets fired because he is accused of stealing some information and selling it to the competitors. And so he's fired on the spot. And so he and his wife Krista find that they can't really afford to pay for the brownstone on her salary, which is not a lot. She works at a like a dry cleaner place. So they decide that the best thing to do is take on a tenant. And so they have a couple interesting characters show up trying to rent the room in their house, and they're all very wacky and wild and weird. But finally, they meet Whitney, who's this like young and really pretty girl. And I mean, we already kind of know where the story is going at this point. Blake is an interesting character, and he's one of those that you love to hate kind of characters. And it's funny because in the blurb here, Lisa Jewell says something about that. She says, with a brilliant main character who I loved and hated in equal measure. And I think I felt the same way about him. He's just so hateable. But he's very funny as well. So he's the source of a lot of like the funny moments in the book. And so we're constantly like chuckling or laughing because of the things that he says. And so he's very much like a stereotypical dude kind of guy, but he wants to be better, he wants to be different, or he says he wants to be different. So from the moment that Whitney moves in, at first he's very friendly with her and she's friendly with him, and then things start to change. And um he finds his sanity and his life like being ripped to shreds, and he doesn't know what's real or who he can trust. And yeah, I think that's really all I want to tell you about this one. But there were some plot twists. I do think certain parts of this were predictable. It was not as surprising or shocking as some of her other books. I think that's something Frida McFadden does well. Her books are have the ability to catch me off guard a lot. Like I just don't see it coming. And so when there's a certain plot twist, I'm like, "What? I can't believe that happened." Or "I can't believe this is happening." And then she usually does the encore plot twist. Like just when you think you're done, bam, another plot twist. So she kind of does that very well. She didn't do too much of that, to be honest with you, in this one. I thought this was a more toned down version of her books. There were some things that I could not like just believe. I couldn't believe it. It's like, okay, like you're really asking me to believe this very far-fetched thing. So I found some of the things to be pretty silly, if you will. Um but it was overall a good time, and I guess that's why this is my favorite book of the month, because a lot of times things will just be okay or they're fine. But what I enjoyed most about the tenant is that it was a great time. I had no idea where this was going to go. I mean, it was just shocking thing, weird thing. uh like I felt like screaming at Blake. I wanted to shake him. I wanted to just like jump in there and be like, seriously, like, and it's a bunch of stuff that I don't want to tell you too much of because it'll be spoilery. But it's a good time. This is ultimately a good time. I think it also helps that this was a buddy read. I had such a great time talking about this with my booktube friends, and we had so many laughs. I don't think we would have had so much fun if this would have been any other book. So it was ultimately a really cool, fun experience. It's such a fast read, as all her books are. I think that's also something I really enjoy, that, you just keep reading. You have to know what's going on. It gets to the point where you can't stop. Like you want to know how this ends. So it does have that kind of same feeling as her other books do. And yeah, it was ultimately like a lot of fun. And so I did give this 4 stars, and it ended up being my favorite book of the month. So there you have it, guys. Those are the 9 books that I was able to read this month. It was tough for me to get some reading time done. I did rely a lot on finishing books on audio, and I did read 2 mangas, which were quicker to read. But I'm still pretty proud of everything I was able to read this month. Even though I obviously did not get into all the books that I wanted to get to, as I mentioned in my TBR video, but pretty much a successful month for me. So, how was your month of May? What were some of your favorite reads of the month? And did you have any 5 stars? Did you have any 1 stars? Have you read any of these? How do you feel about any of these books? Let me know in the comments down below. I would love to talk to you down there and have you talk with each other and kind of share a little bit more of how your month went. Thank you guys so much for watching this video and all my videos. Please like and comment, and if you're not subscribed to my channel already, please subscribe. It really does help me. And I will see you soon in another video. Till then, have a good one, guys. Bye. I don't know if you guys can hear them, but there's a dog going crazy outside. I'll wait.